All right, we're back. So I want to thank you guys for joining us. Again, as I said before, there was another group hosting. Monique is doing an outstanding job hosting certain segments of the broadcast, and Kirk and I are having fun here. But we're about to have a lot of fun because we're going to reminisce about the last year's P&E, which was in Miami. And man, the barbecue was off the chain. And the barbecue was so good because one of my good friends and former ball player himself, Derrick McCray, made sure he took care of us. And Derrick is joining us now. How you doing, Derrick?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Ray.
Oh, man, that's good, man. I missed that. Listen, man, I've been trying to cut back, said I was going to cut back on the barbecue because I have no self-control. But I just can't help it when you were providing the food, and you did an excellent job last year. I'm curious, man, for you. First of all, I want to ask you, how's the family? Is everybody healthy and no problems with the pandemic or the
coronavirus? Everybody's healthy. I was the only one that contracted it earlier, late May, June, and it was really, really horrific on me. And I'm just really recovering from it. Took me like 6 months to get my energy back, the fatigue, the headaches, the brain fog was just starting to lift. Yeah, it was bad. I almost died from it, but I thank God that I didn't.
Wow. So it really took you to the point where were you hospitalized? Were you on a ventilator or anything like that?
No, I went to the hospital because I knew something was wrong, and they told me I was positive with COVID, and I was so sick, but I could still breathe. He said since I was breathing normally or somewhat normal, that I would go home. And then once I got home, it got worse. And I didn't want to go to the hospital because the way that they was talking about it, nobody could get access to me. So I figured I'll stay home. At least my brothers and family members could get to me at home versus me being in the hospital. So I just took my chances at home. And the night that it was really, really bad, I called my brother. I thought I was going to leave, and I said, man, I don't want to die like this, but it was excruciating pain and it was suffering, and it was weird. And I got to tell this story. My father, who's gone, and my mother, who's gone, and my grandma, who's gone. Some strange reason, I had this illusion while I was really about to leave, and my father came through in my dream in a green suit, a black tie, and a white shirt, and his glasses that he wear, those old school type big glasses with an afro and a big mustache and goatee. And when he came in, I could see him vividly. And he was a pastor, and he kicked that door in. And it was like I was slumping, and I just started crying in my sleep because I said, wow, that's my dad. And he picked me up. And I remember him picking me up on the football field in high school because it took him too long to get me. I had a broke ankle. And he ran out the stands and got me. He did the same thing in this dream. And he took me to the other side. And the next thing I saw was my grandmother with a shawl on. And she was sitting there eating some crackers like she usually do in front of our old barbecue stand. And she didn't say a word. She was just watching. And I could feel my mother's spirit on the other side of me in the bed. Then I knew then that I might have a chance to live because their spirit came to protect me from death. And that's when I started noticing the turnaround and how I was feeling. And the ambulance and everybody came in the hazmat suits and stuff. And they was about told them I was going to be fine. I didn't want to go. I'm just going to battle this on out. And God won the battle. We won the battle, and I made it through. It was a long recovery, but I was able to make it through. And it was just a blessing of God that I'm here. But I know that COVID is super, super real. I mean, wow. I've never got hit by a Mack truck, bro.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we too are happy that you were able to fight your way through that, and don't want to just ignore that, but do want to kind of segue into part of our conversation today, because you are a former athlete and of course you're a business owner, entrepreneur, and so clearly there must have been some challenges with the operation of the business while you were recovering. You want to share a little bit about that, how you were able to sustain the business during that time?
Well, the blessing is that I had a pretty decent GM, uh, a good business partner, and I had a great staff that was supporting and surrounding the business at that time. And so I was able to make it through, and we went through all the COVID protocols and make sure that everything was right here at the restaurant, the new place. And we shut down for a few days just to make sure that everything was sanitized, and we did what we needed to do to follow all the CDC guidelines. And but my staff kicked into gear. They held it down while I was sick. Like I'm just getting back about maybe a month and a half or so ago back in the saddle where I could really run again. So
Okay.
they held it down. It was good. So we survived it.
Yeah, you mentioned your partner, and I know one of the things that we wanted to be sure to talk to you about was, building a brand and a business, and you talked about a partner. I'm sure that was at least one of the things that was important to you as you started your business. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about that, about building a business for those young men out there, because it's our understanding from speaking to
Mm-hmm.
one of our guests earlier, is that young people, young athletes should at least start thinking about how they will transition, or once their playing days are over with. Obviously, you've been there, you've done that, you're doing that, you're a living witness.
Yes.
So you've gone through that ideal of a business and a brand, and going through that process. So why don't you talk to us about, Derrick, about when you first start thinking about perhaps becoming an entrepreneur, and how'd you go about doing that?
Okay. Well, I grew up in a family business. We've been around for 86 years as a barbecue family here in South Florida. So I kind of grew up as a kid knowing that I would possibly be in a position one day to run McCray's, but before that, I as an athlete, I thought only football and everything else. And I have to be honest, I didn't prepare myself properly, for the transition. And I had to learn some of the hard knocks of business because I wasn't thinking properly as a young man. So that's what I would want to tell these young guys. The will to win isn't as great as the will to want to prepare to win. So they should be preparing themselves now for uh, for business. Finding out what the accounting is, finding out all you can find out about your business. With all I get is we get understanding. And luckily, I had some training as a kid when I got into this business. When I moved to California, when I came back home, I was broke, and I started this business with $100 in one grill. My mom was sick, my dad was sick, and I didn't prepare myself administratively for what I need to do for setting up the business. So I went through some things. I learned how to get a business plan. I started planning, meeting with consultants and doing things I need to do in order to ensure some success for this business, because I knew this is all I could do now. So my back was kind of just the wall when I got into the business. I didn't want to say I came in with the golden spoon. I didn't come in. I had to find the holy grail.
Mhm.
I had to find myself. I had to put away childish things. I had to become an adult and become responsible. And that's where I tell most young guys, if you're gonna do this, make sure that you're mature, you're responsible, and you're gonna follow the laws of the land. And so I had to go through hard knocks. And I'm just, keeping it real. I had to go through the hard knocks, but glory be to God that he put me on a path where I was absorbing the right information. I was talking to the right people. I was working hard. I had good work ethics. Got up early, went to bed late. Got up early, went to bed late. I borrowed $100 from my mom and a grill from my dad, and asked my dad for the blessings to keep moving. He blessed me to keep going. And now that $100 has turned to a multi-million-dollar facility and business here in South Florida. And it just didn't fall out the sky, but it took a lot of hard work, and it took a lot of magna fortitude. Just like I was on the football field, got knocked down a lot of times. I had to get back up, get back in the game. When I was hurting, Some days I had to keep going. My feet hurting, back hurting, had to keep going because we was trying to get to the victory. And see, that team concept, I understood the team concept, and I allowed my father to be my coach when I was doing it, because I had to let somebody else be right, because I know I wasn't right, to understand what was going on. And that's called humility. So I humbled myself so that I could absorb the information and learn bit by bit. Ray, you watched this grow for many, many years. We've been doing this with you guys for almost 16, 17 years that we've been doing this. And, we started out with a little something, and we just kept growing and kept working hard to perfect our craft. It's like I played wide receiver on the football field and ran back punts and kickoffs. So I perfected nose over the toe, catching with my hands, leverage on both points of the football. You know what I mean? And getting down in the field and getting a horizontal stretch on defense. So I took that same concept and brought it into my business. I wanted to understand the defense.
Yeah.
So
it's an inspiring story, Derrick. It really is.
Yes. And on top of that, I went to jail a few times. I mean, with people, I wasn't perfect. I wasn't a perfect kid. When I got out of school, I wasn't doing all the right things. So I don't want to act like, I was this perfect guy. I did this and I never made mistakes. I made a bunch of mistakes, but I had that will to win. I wanted to make sure that I would not make the same mistakes twice. And
I got a question for both of you as former pros, and as it relates to the young folks who are watching. There are guys that you played with who were preparing when you were playing, and then both your stories were you focused on playing. You might have been thinking about life after, but getting busy to plan for it and do something about it was postponed till you had to do something. What percentage do you think of guys are preparing, are getting the message and doing something about it versus the kids that are primarily focused on making sure that that they're eligible and not cut? Do you think that number's changed? Are more young kids thinking about that and doing something about it today than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago?
I think that they are, based on the agents, the people that's handling them now, doing a lot better job in educating these guys. I think the league is doing a better job in picking the right type of guys now, versus when I was coming along. They've studied us enough to know what type of guys that need to go ahead and prepare themselves. And a lot of these guys are very smart now. So I would say the percentage is a lot higher now than it was when I was coming through in the 80s. I think these guys have better plans, better roadmaps. They have better facilities. They have better training. They have better eating. I think they're so much smarter now than we were. And they're exposed to so much good stuff. I mean, we were exposed, but it's just like these guys really, got a lot at their fingertips that some of the stuff we didn't have then. You know what I mean? So I think today they're a little better prepared than we were, but based on how they pick the guys now.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on those comments that you just made too, Derrick. I believe too, because I believe, I'm going to say we're like the second wave. I too, like you, I'm a 80s generation of players, and the civil rights movement was all in the 60s. So the generation before us, just got a chance to start playing pro football, in the late 50s, early 60s. So that generation, and those guys had jobs in the off season. They didn't make enough money that they could only play football, and that was it. We were the generation where we made at least enough money during the season that we could live off it until the next season.
Right.
And then we would start getting some additional paychecks. But again, in terms of, preparation and opportunities and things like that, we're probably the first generation that had some opportunity. Like you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. We're probably the first generation of athletes that became entrepreneurs because the other guys had to have a job. But I think our learning has helped the next generation, this generation today. We've passed the baton to them. They've taken it to the next level. And there were no LeBron James or Michael Jordans of really of our generation. Well, Mike was in our generation,
Yeah,
but
Mike was in our
that's when things just kind of kicked off and people
Mhm.
started making a little bit more money. There were entrepreneurship opportunities they were introduced to. So this next generation, I think they're going to do it and take it to the next level. I'd be interested also, Derrick, to talk to you a little bit about, the entrepreneurship. You had family. You kind of took on the family name, the family brand, and continue to build on that. Other athletes that are out there that perhaps maybe don't have family members that are in business. Do you think it's challenging for them to be able to become entrepreneurs, or do you think that they've learned some things from the sport that can help them become entrepreneurs, other than the fact that they just make a lot of money?
Right. I think you're born with an entrepreneurial spirit. Some of us just hustlers and we like doing our own thing. Some of us just like working for ourselves and we just believe that we do it. I think is something that's internal. You know what I mean? And then more so to push us to another level. And some people okay with just working for other people. But some of us have that spirit that like we could do this for ourselves. And it's quite a few guys I like out there that have that spirit. So I would say, a lot of the kids that are coming along now got good handlers, and those ones that like being CEOs and presidents, and those that like doing business to do it, and the other ones that don't really like, having that type of responsibility or work for somebody.
Now,
So
let me ask you a little bit about school. Some of the things that you learned in school. I'm one who I didn't do as much as I should have, or make the priority I should have when I was in school, but I made sure my kids did. So
right.
particularly my daughter, my son, he's a knucklehead, he don't want to listen. So, but I'm just curious as to, did you have any marketing or any business studies that you took that helped you prepare for your business, or did you learn, was it everything that you learned on the job from your dads?
Well, actually, it was a combination of the two. Most of the stuff I learned by watching and doing and being a part of the business, from a kid till I was 17 years old when I went to college. And I went to Florida A&M University, and I was in the School of Business under Dean Mobley. So I learned a few things, but I'm like you, I didn't apply myself when I was in college. I was there to play football, hang out with girls, and drink. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I really learned
Really?
it. You know what I mean? So I don't
Yep.
know if I really learned what I need to learn, but I think in the back of my subconscious mind, I was preparing myself subliminally because I knew that one day that I might be in business.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't apply. I was just like you, but I was on my kids. Y'all better do the right thing. Don't do as I say. Don't do what I did.
Yeah, I've used that line in the household several times.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't prepare myself as well as I should have. And sometimes if I could go back now and know what I know, I would have did a much better job in studying and staying home and having some discipline. And
Yeah.
I didn't have that like I should have when I was in college. But I thank God again that he gave me a chance to turn it around and get to this point in my life.
Okay.
I hear what you guys are saying. The former player we honored last year, Jimmy Jones, it always impressed me that his story was he went to Nebraska on a scholarship. He went NFL, and back then they had 2 drafts. He went to Green Bay and the Jets and chose the Jets. But he was always going to leverage football for his business career, which is exactly what he did. And then his best buddy, Jerry Allen, with the Redskins, did the same thing. But I was more like you guys. I rode the benefits of being a student athlete, a jock, as long as I could, even though I was thinking in the back of my mind and maybe was a bit scared of it, what's going to happen after. But I never really got busy doing anything about it other than the things I had to do to stay eligible.
And let me tell you, I'm going to say this, because I'm right along with you. I can remember Coach Hubbard saying, okay, Derrick, you're going pro, but are you prepared for life?
That's a good one. That's a
That
real
was
good one.
Told me that, man. He said, oh, yeah, you're going to the Tampa Bay Bandits. Yeah, Steve Spurrier, they want you down there, huh? But are you prepared for life? Because he saw my off the field activities. He saw how I was living, and it never hit me until everything fell apart. And I knew I wasn't prepared for life, you know, and that's when it hit me like a ton of bricks that he said something very powerful to me, and I kind of brushed it off, but it stuck on me to this day.
So let me ask something, Derrick, because you said something, you mentioned a coach, am I right? Or a professor or a coach?
Coach, I was talking about Coach Hubbard, Coach Rudy
So
Hubbard.
how important do you think coaches are to a player's life and development? And do you think they have a responsibility to the total development of a player, or are they just there to be a coach?
I think they have to nurture, and it's more they have to develop these kids. They got to be a father figure, you know, and along with being a coach, because a lot of these kids come from broken backgrounds and all kind of stuff, and they have to step up and be able to lead these kids in the right direction, even when they don't want to. Even the kids they think that's a mess up, they still gotta do the right thing. You know, they in a strategic position, and God commissioned them to be over people's lives. So, and they have to be honorable and straight up, you know, and they have to discipline when they have to discipline. They have to give praise when they have to give praise. And then if the kid deserves a quality talk to from a coach, then he needs to do that and not give him a bad word. Or if that kid has changed his life from when he came in as a freshman and sophomore, but then he's changed to be a stellar kid in his junior and senior year, then he needs to give that kid the benefit of the doubt for those scouts that's coming in and not try to hurt him. You know what I mean? So I think it's the coaches is imperative in a kid's life. It's very vital in those 4 or 5 years or 3 years that they're there, you know, to nurture and bring those guys into manhood, because they got man body, they're still immature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
well, listen, man, I certainly appreciate. I can tell that coaches and your dad has made a great impression on you, and just like, you know, fumbling the ball, man, you might have fumbled it, but you recovered it. And so things are going well. So good to see you again. And listen, I'm not gonna eat a lot, but I'm looking forward to that LA trip so I can get me some ribs, because I'm gonna mess up and I'm gonna eat a couple of them. I'm not supposed to, but I'm gonna eat a couple of them for sure. So you got a whole year to get them ribs right, McCray.
Hey,
a whole year.
I'm gonna do
there are two things, Derrick, I remember from last year in addition to the ribs. One was the shrimp. Shrimp was amazing too. But the other was your team. The other was your team. Man, they hustled and they were so professional and they were so on it.
Yeah, and that's our job, to work at a high level and play at a high level, you know, and that's how I coach my staff. You know, we're gonna be at the P&E and doing stuff for the Super Bowl, and they need to be at their very best. And I try to prepare them when we go on with an awesome game plan. We're gonna do this, and this, and if Guy or Ray call an audible, then we got to be able to make that audible and make that change on the fly. So
there you go.
That's what it is.
Okay. All right, fellas. So we're gonna have to close this out. We got another guest is with us. Derrick, we appreciate you joining us, man. I'm so happy for you, brother, that you recovered. God bless you, man. Hope to see you next year and eat some of them ribs.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
Well, I
Derrick.
love you guys. I appreciate you, and I don't think we would be here without you guys, Ray and Guy, and helping us get to this point in business. So you guys have been a great help and crutch and everything for us getting where we got to go, and we really appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, my man.
Thanks, Derrick.